King Charles is now richer than his mother Queen Elizabeth II was, with an estimated $770 million fortune according to the new Sunday Times Rich List. So in this video I thought I'd go through how the king has this money, how he gets this valuation, and more generally how the royals get their money as well, and whether it's good value for money for the UK taxpayer. So the king's wealth increased by £12 million since the previous year, 2023, according to the Sunday Times, which does indeed now make him richer than his mother. Indeed, according to the 2024 Sunday Times Rich List, the British monarch's personal wealth stands at £770 million, making him the 258th richest person in the UK, surpassing his mother Queen Elizabeth's personal wealth, which stood at about $468 million before her death in September of 2022. Now, it's worth noting that the king's personal wealth doesn't come close even to matching Hugh Grosvenor's personal wealth, the Duke of Westminster, who is the godfather to Prince George, whose family's net worth stands at a huge $12.8 billion, according to the Sunday Times. And the Duke is a billionaire businessman and aristocrat who actually descends from the Russian imperial family. So while the king is a very wealthy man, he is actually far from the richest man in Britain. A former aide of the king has told the Sunday Times that Charles built his wealth following his £21 million divorce from Princess Diana in 1996 by saving profits he received from the Duchy of Cornwall. He said, quote, "Charles became prudent at tucking away some money from the duchy after the wipeout of capital from the divorce. We're not talking about vast sums here, several tens of millions, no more. There have been suggestions that Camilla brought a good deal of money into their relationship, but that's really not correct." So to go through what the Duchy of Cornwall is, it's essentially a large £1 billion estate, which includes lands, farms, houses and other assets. The Duchy also rents commercial properties in London, Milton Keynes and in Cornwall, and generates income that supports the Prince of Wales, his family and his charitable activities. Prince William, of course, now is the Duke of Cornwall after inheriting the estate from his father following the death of Queen Elizabeth in September 2022, and according to the Sunday Times, King Charles, when he was Prince of Wales and Duke of Cornwall, increased the duchy's annual profits by 42.6% to over $31 million between 2011 and 2022, while he received over $268 million from the duchy between 2012 and 2022. And it's worth also noting that King Charles was a huge environmentalist in the Duchy of Cornwall during this time and increased, forest in the land, and Prince William is following on that legacy, and he's also building sustainable homes for the homeless on his duchy's land. In terms of King Charles's most valuable physical assets, the outlet lists the Sandringham estate in Norfolk and Balmoral Castle in Scotland as the king's most valuable assets, with the prime farmland around Sandringham estimated to be worth over £360 million. Charles also owns a few other properties, including Highgrove House in Gloucestershire and a home in Wales. Following her death, Queen Elizabeth also passed her investment portfolio over to King Charles, estimated to be worth about £151 million. Now, the true personal wealth of the British royals is extremely difficult to calculate, however, as their value of personal jewellery, gifts and other items is unknown, while they also own one of the world's biggest art collections. Charles also receives a taxpayer-funded sovereign grant from the UK government each year to keep the cost of his official duties and the upkeep of homes, including Buckingham Palace, and to pay the staff. But how is this sovereign grant calculated? How much do they get from it? Let's dive into that now. So for 2022 to 2023, the sovereign grant was worth about £86 million, the same as in 2021 to 2022. However, repairs to Buckingham Palace, which is undergoing a 10-year refurbishment plan, and the costs associated with King Charles taking over from Queen Elizabeth, took total spending for that year to £107 million, according to the royal household's annual financial report, which represents about a 5% increase on the £102 million spent the previous year. And because they spent more than the sovereign grant gave them, this meant that they had to draw £20 million from the royal family's reserves to make up the shortfall. As I alluded to before, the king and other working members of the royal family use the money from the sovereign grant to pay for expenses related to their official duties. The vast majority is spent on the upkeep of properties and staff costs, with members of the royal family also carrying out nearly 3,000 engagements on average across the UK and abroad during each year. More than 95,000 guests attended 330 events at royal residences between 2022 and 2023, including receptions, awards investitures and garden parties. Buckingham Palace also received over 183,000 items of correspondence, such as the letters he receives from the public and all sorts of other things, and the sovereign grant is also spent on handling all of these official duties and things like that. So how is the sovereign grant calculated? Well, the royal family was previously funded through a fixed annual payment known as the civil list, and this was replaced by the sovereign grant in 2012. Profits from the Crown Estate, which is a property business owned by the monarch but run independently, go straight into the UK Treasury. This does not go to the royal family, it goes straight into the government's treasury. The level of profit is used as a benchmark to then calculate the funding then given by the government to the royal family. So the profits from the Crown Estate go to the government, and then the government give a small portion of that to the royal family. For example, in 2022, the Crown Estate had assets worth £16.5 billion, almost £8 billion of properties in London, including Regent Street, as well as nearly half the land along the coast of England, Wales and Northern Ireland. This is not the King's private property. It merely belongs to the monarch for the duration of their reign, but is managed independently, and the profits go to the government. The King cannot sell its assets or keep any profits for himself. Instead, the government gives the royal family about 12% of the Crown Estate's profits, with King Charles announcing that he wants the extra profits to be used for the wider public good. The percentage of the Crown Estate's profits that the royal family get from the sovereign grant has actually been cut in recent years, meaning that the total sovereign grant for 2024 to 2025 will remain at £86.3 million for the third year in a row. However, if the Crown Estate's profits grow as they are predicted to, even under the reduced formula, of course the profits might increase with the sovereign grant, but the 12% figure is due to remain in place until the end of the 10-year Buckingham Palace restoration project in 2027. So to try and round this up simply, the Crown Estate owns loads of land and properties, and this profit goes directly to the government, and the government then decide how much to give the royal family out of the profits of the Crown Estate. Even though the Crown Estate is in the monarch's name, they do not take any private profit from that. The government will assign them an amount of money after they have taken all the profits of the Crown Estate, and this is usually about 12%. And if you're wondering the individual cost on each UK taxpayer, it works out at about £1.50 a year to operate the monarchy, and of course all the money that brings in from tourism, etc, etc. I won't go too much into that, but it can be said from many well-versed analysts that the royal family and the tourism industry and everything that comes with it is actually a net contributor to the UK economy. Some other ways that King Charles might receive his money, though, is coming from a private estate called the Duchy of Lancaster, which is passed down from monarch to monarch, and it covers more than 18,000 hectares of land in areas such as Lancashire and Yorkshire, as well as properties in central London. It is worth about £650 million and generates about £20 million a year in profits. Of course, we've already mentioned the Duchy of Cornwall, which is worth about £1 billion and generates a net surplus of about £24 million a year. The King owns the Duchy of Lancaster and Prince William owns the Duchy of Cornwall at the moment, and these two can receive the profits from the duchies personally if they want to. However, they are not entitled to any proceeds from the sale of any estate assets, which must be reinvested into the estate. The monarch also owns the royal palaces, which are not part of the Crown Estate and part of the Royal Collection of Art, but these do not generate income. Some palaces are looked after and funded by the royal family personally with their private wealth. Others, such as the Tower of London, are managed by Historic Royal Palaces, an independent charity. The Royal Collection is also run by a charity, the Royal Collection Trust, which reinvests income received from ticket sales and retail outlets back into the Royal Collection. Now, many of you might be wondering, do the royal family pay tax? Well, the short answer is yes, but it does require a bit of explaining. So legally, the royal family are not actually required to pay any tax. However, back in 1992, Queen Elizabeth volunteered to pay income tax and capital gains tax on her personal income, and the king now does the same. The two duchies, Lancaster and Cornwall, are exempt from corporation tax, but the King and Prince of Wales voluntarily pay income tax on the revenue they generate. The amount of tax they pay is not made public, but is believed to be considerable. They do not pay capital gains tax because they do not benefit personally from any increase in the duchy's assets. Members of the royal family also pay tax on any income generated from privately owned assets. The one thing they do not have to pay, though, is inheritance tax. So King Charles did not have to pay inheritance tax on the money he received when Queen Elizabeth died under the sovereign-to-sovereign exemption agreed in 1993 by Prime Minister John Major. Now, what about the costs of security? Well, some argue that the money that the royal family get from the sovereign grant is actually nowhere near enough to fund all of the costs, and so this comes out of their private wealth. It does not cover their security arrangements, which is usually paid for by the Metropolitan Police, although the cost is not disclosed. In May of 2023, the Treasury confirmed that the funeral of Queen Elizabeth II had cost the government an estimated £162 million, and estimates put the cost of the King's coronation at between £50 and £100 million. However, many argue that any costs from the royal family are far eclipsed by the boost it gives to tourism and trade. Indeed, a company called Brand Finance finds that the monarchy will deliver nearly £1 billion of economic benefit to the UK in 2023 alone, with a nearly £958 million boost. This was a new and updated cost-benefit audit conducted by Brand Finance, revealing that the royal family continues to make a positive financial impact on the UK's economy, despite the funeral of the Queen and the coronation of the King. So that's where I'll wrap up this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I'd love to read them, and make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Join me on Patreon if you want to vote on some royal polls and things like that, and I also have a membership to my channel now, and we'll be doing some member exclusive perks as well. So make sure to check those out, and as always, thank you very much for watching.